It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Chris, and this podcast is completely free of microplastics. What is going on, you yacht possums? Thank you so much for being here on a Monday morning with the fantasy playoffs underway. I mean, for some of us, the fantasy playoffs are over, but there's not that much you can do about it. You know, we were talking about that on Sunday morning during our live stream. Making the fantasy playoffs usually means, you know, if you do it consistently, you're pretty good at fantasy. Winning the fantasy playoffs is a much smaller sample size, and you're making the best guesses that you can, and it becomes mostly about luck. There's not as much you can do. I know, I can tell, the instinct is to freak out about weather, you know, or, oh man, this one receiver, they said he was limping a little bit. That means this other receiver, shouldn't I start that guy? You know, you want control, and unfortunately, you just don't have it. I think it's awesome and cool to get nervous and to get worked up and pissed when things don't go your way. But just like you probably shouldn't scream at the dealer when you don't like the river card, I think you should be kind to yourself throughout this December. Remember, this is a really stupid thing that we play, that we do every year, and just do your best not to let it get you down too badly. Keep listening to the show, even if you're eliminated. It's fun. We'll just talk about football. Football is fun. That's what this is all for. So because there's not as much to do, and because, you know, we're trying not to overmanage these things, we don't do the full 5 shows a week in December. You know this. This week we're still going to do 4 shows, one for the Yacht Club on Wednesday, no Thursday show. But my job doing film review on Monday and Tuesday, there are no bye weeks. There are a lot of games. I've watched 9 games for today, and the goal can't be, hey, let's find some obscure receiver to take a chance on. Like, we're not doing that anymore. We're now focused in on the stuff that could actually change what we do and how we behave over the next 2 weeks. That will mostly be the lens through which I talk about games today, though, of course, yes, at times it's just fun to talk about what we saw. I'll get us started with a game that sure looked like you could break out the footy pajamas through the first part of it, as the Patriots took a 21-0 lead on the Bills and seemed to be cruising up 24-7 at the half. But then Josh Allen and the Buffalo run game got it going. 5 straight possessions with a touchdown, and the Bills both stay alive for the division, but probably not going to win the division. More importantly, they themselves get to look totally rock solid for their own playoff berth and put more than a grain of doubt into everybody in the AFC's mind, and certainly that includes the Patriots, when, for the Patriots, everything since week 3 had been wine and roses. And for those Bills, like, you know, plenty to talk about. There's a great comeback and plenty of heroes. Allen is obviously the one who makes it all possible. James Cook was awesome in the second half. Allen had 0 pass yards with 3 minutes left in the first half. But yeah, that's why they play 2 halves. And the point is, though, that nothing's really changing here for how we're using our Bills. Khalil Shakir had a big controversial catch/pass interference call in the fourth quarter. He got credit for the yards, which I don't think he should have, because I think it was intercepted, but it didn't matter because it was going to be called interference anyway. You know, he gets to be on the borderline of fantasy ulcer town and usability. But, you know, they just can't find anybody else. Josh Palmer keeps making mistakes. Brandon Cooks had an early drop. The little black backpack, Keon Coleman, had a drop. It was the tight ends. You got 2 touchdowns out of Dawson Knox here. One of them came after Josh Allen had scored a rushing touchdown, but it was called back by holding. As we said last week, Knox plays way more than Dalton Kincaid because he's a run blocker. But you know, those 2 guys, those 2 tight ends, did run roughly the same number of routes. They each got 4 targets. They each got 3 catches, almost exactly the same yardage, but just things broke Knox's way in the red zone, and he scored twice for, you know, he didn't score twice last week, but he keeps scoring. I think Knox, you know, I had him number 25 for this week. He works his way higher. Should he be higher than Dalton Kincaid? Should they be right next to each other? it's hard to get ultra aggressive when there's two of them and the volume isn't massive, but also the tight end is sort of what they can count on now. I'm going to get less aggressive with Kincaid, I can tell you that, when the Bills go to Cleveland and face the Browns next week. For the Patriots, the first half was great. Drake May has 2 rushing touchdowns. They had been such a struggle bus in the red zone, and they brought out some new stuff for this one. A zone read keeper touchdown run on the first one, then a quarterback draw on the next. So it's 14-0 with 2 rushing touchdowns for Drake May. They had like a reverse early on. They had a throwback pass to May where then he threw it. And so they'd cracked open the playbook. Their run game was doing really well, split among Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. Middle of the second quarter, Mac Hollins climbs the ladder to make a great catch. Very next play, right around midfield, Henderson was gone right up the gut, a massive rushing lane for his first long touchdown, and it was 24-7 at the half. And once New England had fully blown the lead in the fourth quarter, it was Henderson. It was a nothing bottled up little run play on the right side. Henderson was stopped but not down, so he just kind of started running the other way, got all the way to the left side, and there was kind of nobody there except Drake May was there, leading him down the field for a 65-yard touchdown run. 117 of Henderson's 148 rush yards came on those 2 runs, but those 2 runs are obviously in the range of his outcomes. I don't think either one, the reason it's repeatable is because he's fast, but both of them were one of them, a lot of guys could have scored that first one because the lane just wide open and he ran straight. And the second one wasn't really anything he did other than just, kind of filter the other way. So I'm not like blown away by those 2 touchdowns, but they are in his range of outcomes. And, it's tough to know that it will always happen. And I don't think he has much of a plan in tight quarters, but he certainly paid off, and you're going to keep using him if he paid off for you here. Stephon Daugherty did not. Remember, he had knocked the Bills' block off in Buffalo in a revenge game earlier in the season, but here he does 3 for 26, and the entire New England offense just got stuck in the second half. Hunter Henry had a huge drop in the fourth quarter. They got the one defensive stop that they needed, and they made Buffalo punt it back to them with 3 minutes left in the game. But Drake May didn't look like the MVP needing that drive. The MVP, puts together a drive there, and he did not. I thought maybe we saw what a lack of a true difference maker separator among the Patriot receivers caused, because May just kind of stood there and held it, and he didn't feel like that anybody could get open. Let's face it, this is first rodeo for a lot of these guys in a big spot, whereas Josh Allen's just been doing this for years and years, and Buffalo was simply tougher, and they rose to the occasion. The Patriots got flexed in Week 16. They'll be playing at night on Sunday next week when they face the Ravens.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, 8 more games that I have watched all the way through a long day and evening in the submarine. And we'll just talk about these games. Coming up, we'll do Packers, Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, Colts, Seahawks, Ravens, Bengals, and Vikings, Cowboys. I will preview, however briefly, the Monday night game, Dolphins at Steelers. And then my guest will be Patrick Daugherty from Rotoworld. And Pat picked 3 other games for us both to watch. Those would be Raiders, Eagles, Jets, Jaguars, and Lions, Rams. I sure hope that you have some fun listening. I really do appreciate you being here today. We are sponsored by Manscaped. Great gift idea. There's still time. Give the gift of smooth. They've got the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. It contains the Lawnmower 5.0 body hair trimmer. I use it. It's just good manners. Nobody likes it when you're a hairy wildebeest down there. Stay neat and trim in your nether regions. And please do not shave your groinal area with the same razor you use on your face. And the Performance Package comes with the Weed Whacker ear, nose, and eyebrow trimmer. I jest. These are terrific, well-made little gizmos that I've had for years. They work, they last, they're great. Hey, the Chairman Pro is a face shaver. It's not in the Performance Package, but they sent me one. It is really good. If you have someone on your list who uses an electric razor on their face, best electric razor I ever used, Manscaped is honestly great. Give the gift of smooth to someone else or to yourself. Go to manscaped.com, check out using the code HarrisFootball, all one word. You'll get 15% off your entire order. For 15% off, go do it now. Awesome gift idea. Manscaped.com, code HarrisFootball.
Smash that like button.
Never a bad idea. In fact, if you've never left a review for the show, you want to give a 5-star review on iTunes or something, Spotify, that'd be lovely. All right, let's get it going with the other 11-2 team going into this week in the AFC with a really, really great win over the Packers in which, hey, that's 23-14 Green Bay early third quarter, and Bo Nix might have turtled. He did not. Instead, he played definitely, I think, the best game I've seen him play. And I've watched them all under tough circumstances. Certainly, late third quarter, Micah Parsons leaving with a non-contact knee injury made it a little easier at the end. But Nix, the movie dojo leader everybody roots against, pretty easy to root for the way he played on Sunday. The Bronco offense got going and pretty much couldn't be stopped in the second half, and it wasn't a trick. It wasn't, run around high school stuff. Nix sat back there and took pressure and was dealing good reads and beautiful timing throws, stuff he really hasn't consistently laid down on tape all the time this year, but Denver needed it here. I can't tell you I'm immediately putting Nix in the land of, wow, he's a must-start fantasy quarterback. And in fact, this is the stuff I like better, and he ran less. And that's the thing that, of course, the Bo Nix enthusiasts were telling you at the beginning of the year, it's a massive, he's going to have 30 rushing touchdowns. I do have an impulse to put him higher after that game. Home Jacksonville next week, not an easy matchup. And many times this year, Sean Payton has been content to play it exactly as conservatively as he can on offense. And I guess technically that was true on Sunday as well. It was just that Denver was down 9, so they couldn't be conservative anymore. Anyway, good from Nix. Cortland Sutton balled out for sure. He got the Broncos into position for their first score, gave up the touchdown to some dude named Bandy. Then late second quarter, caught a deep shot, gave up the touchdown to Lil Jordan Humphrey. But justice would be served. A great throw, a great catch for Sutton's touchdown, third quarter. Big day for him, and he is back to the land of, I'm willing to go into a fantasy semifinal and just hope, and it doesn't always work out because nothing's guaranteed in life, but I would be using him next week. The other Broncos situation I wanted to talk about is Troy Franklin. There's a massive day. Yeah, it's a pretty massive day, especially compared to what he's done lately. 6 for 85 and a touchdown, got body slammed for a personal foul, but he was so important to the comeback here. It just makes me wonder what the whole deal with Pat Bryant was in the first place. Bryant was out on Sunday with a bad hamstring, and then boom, here's Troy Franklin front and center again, which leaves me in a position, I think, kind of hoping that we don't get Pat Bryant. Please just rest your hamstring. So maybe we could see our way through to using Franklin next week. It's just so weird how shelved he was for several weeks before this one, and then immediately looks like such an important part of the game plan. The Packers, so we certainly got a little scare in the first quarter from this guy.
Isn't he sturdy, the Jack Gerbil?
Tracy Wolfson on the sideline saying something like, oh, didn't you know Josh Jacobs is on a pitch count today? Oh, awesome, Tracy. No, I did not know that. And in the first quarter, it really looked like it. Obviously, though, we needn't have worried. The Jack Gerbil, Josh Jacobs, catches a brilliant wheel route touchdown with the ball thrown over his head. He goes up and gets it in the end zone. He started the third quarter after a long pass interference call with a 40-yard touchdown run. So no complaints there. The big news for Green Bay's offense is another injury. Later third quarter, Jordan Love lays in a brilliant bomb shot for Christian Watson. Just an incredible interception by Pat Surtain. This just in, that guy's good. And Watson slams his shoulder on the ground trying to make the catch, was down a long time, did not play it again in the game. The Packers called it a chest injury. Okay, it kind of looked like a collarbone to me, and obviously, left us holding the bag at 3 catches for 29 yards. What I'll say is that Green Bay suddenly found themselves in huge crisis mode as Bo Nix led several scoring drives, and the receiver who I thought was acquitting himself the best was actually rookie Matthew Golden. Not huge in the box score, 3 for 55, but he was the one who drew the long interference right after halftime that I mentioned. And Golden also caught a deep one in the fourth quarter, a play where I thought he showed really nice savvy and body control and gained 27 yards. Now, we all know the Packers have a billion wideouts, and that's been the problem. And things only recently has started to feel like they were consolidating around Watson. So I can't draw a straight line to Golden. I give him a chance. I'm assuming Watson is done. We'll see. I'm kind of assuming we are. Dontavian Wicks, not giving him much of a chance. The worst hands in the NFL, they were last year, and that's probably the reason he doesn't play much this year. He popped one up for Jordan Love's other interception. Neither of those picks for Jordan Love was bad. Not really either one his fault. One was an amazing play by Surtain, the other one directly through Wicks's hands. But yeah, for Green Bay, they do have probably too many guys for us to feel sure about who would be startable among fantasy receivers if Watson is not in there. Let's talk about Chargers-Chiefs. The Chiefs are officially done. The Chargers get another win where their offense makes you kind of vomit. Very clearly watching this game, a battle of absolutely broken offenses. And, I know sometimes people say, oh, that offense is broken. Like Cousin Josh says that sometimes. Like it's breaking the league. It's good. That is not what I mean in this case. It was close. It was a good game. It was fun to watch. It was very tough. Huge hits. And obviously the biggest injury in the world right now in the NFL. But also the Chiefs, they were already down their 4 best offensive linemen going into this game. They lost their right tackle right away on the first series, and of course also lost Patrick Mahomes to a torn ACL on the very final drive with a minute or so left. And the Chargers, of course, they don't have a lot of sympathy for the line because they're down 1 million linemen too. And you probably just aren't going to love having to use these guys from these offenses. Obviously with no Mahomes, that probably goes double for the Chiefs. Just even in the first half of this game, the Chiefs had 8 plays for negative yards on offense, and the Chargers, quote-unquote, only had 4. The quarterbacks were getting sacked. They were punting. I don't know, the first Chiefs drive was actually pretty good, and Mahomes would score on a scramble up the middle to take a 7-0 lead. That would be the last touchdown the Chiefs would score. In the first half, they would get down to the red zone again after intercepting Justin Herbert in his own territory, and they were trying to get Isaiah Pacheco going. He played more than Kareem Hunt did in the first half, but Mahomes got sacked on a 3rd down, and they had to kick a field goal. It was really like a couple of defenses cracking down hard on a couple of incredibly compromised offenses. Third quarter, Mahomes had 6 pass yards. The Chargers came all the way back. Now the Chiefs are down 3. Mahomes throws a really unforgivable pick at the Charger 1. Hunt would wind up playing more than Pacheco down the stretch. Travis Kelce, tried. He tried to have some big catches in the emergency drive at the end, but then Gardner Minshew would throw the game-sealing interception looking for Kelce. Just not a lot to be enthused about offensively. Plus, man, Rashee Rice, the second straight week, a defense just absolutely teeing off on him. This dude is taking licks. It turns out when you use a receiver only one way, in this case an endless barrage of slants, the defense sometimes finally does figure it out and lay the lumber on him, and Rice got crushed twice more in this game. The Chargers, they pulled out a few big drives when they needed, one at the end of the first half, a couple in the second half. I thought in the first half, the pass design was rancid, just waiting for downfield routes to develop and getting Justin Herbert blasted as a result. They figured it out. We better use misdirection. We better start throwing some screens and short stuff in the second half, and it worked better. But the Chargers never converted a single 3rd down more than 3rd and 3 all day. With 20 seconds left in the first half, they converted a bomb to this guy.
No.
Trey Harris First name Cleveland, cousin Cleveland. And then Herbert hit a hero throw in the end zone to Keandre Lambert-Smith. Meanwhile, the young lad McConkey, had one catch for like 5 yards in the first half and 2 for 20 on the day. Keenan Allen came through a couple of times. Oronde Gadsden had some short sideline stuff, but just everything with that offense is going to be a struggle, and it's nobody's fault other than the injuries. Kamani Vidal started, but then Omarion Hampton came in for the second carry. Hampton had an important carry around the edge in the second half that went 26 yards and set LA up for a field goal. But the snap count, 39 Vidal, 23 Hampton. Now the touch count, far more equal because, again, as we said last week, Vidal is the pass blocker. The Chiefs next week play the Titans without Mahomes. It's not a matchup you feel terrible about, but they'll be playing out the string, and I don't think anybody will feel like a must start, while the Chargers will be at Dallas. We are sponsored by Aura Frames, another wonderful last-minute gift idea that I have given to my parents, and they love it. Aura makes digital picture frames. It's a great gift idea because, first of all, you can preload it with unlimited pictures and videos and have it arrive in time for the holiday. And it'll have these wonderful pics of you and your family and or your friends. But what's extra amazing to me is that you can then update the picture frame. Using the app, the Aura app, all year long, you can put new pictures onto their picture frame, straight from your phone to their desk or shelf or wall, brand new photos and videos. So if you're on the lookout for an awesome last-minute gift idea, the Carver Matte Frame from Aura is named number 1 by Wirecutter. I've given this gift. It's really great. Go to auraframes.com and use the code Harris to get $35 off. Hurry, because obviously the holiday is just a little more than a week away. Terms and conditions apply. Offer good while supplies last. Get $35 off the Carver Matte Frame when you go to auraframes.com and use that code Harris.
I got peanut punched by Chris Harris.
Who among us? Who among us? All right, I've got a few games that we can go through maybe a little quicker. But you know me, I probably won't be able to. I'm going to try and give you an overview. I did watch them, but I'm going to try and focus on things that can change the way you might approach your lineups in Week 16. I've got the Colts and Seahawks, the Phillip Rivers return game, his first game in 1,800 days. You know, I think in terms of just mustering a competitive effort in a circumstance that allowed him to do almost nothing while trying to throw, Rivers kept the train on the tracks. The reason this was close was because of the Colts defense playing a very gutsy game. Rivers was also gutsy. Indy certainly came out running and running effectively early on. And of course, Jonathan Taylor is always in your lineup no matter what. 28 touches for him, 9 for Amir Abdullah, and then 10 for every other skill weapon. But good to know that Rivers can keep things competent enough against a really good Seattle defense that you can still be using Jonathan Taylor. Did Rivers convert some third downs? He definitely did. Early on, it was Michael Pittman and then Tyler Warren. But when he had to squeeze throws into tight windows, he didn't really do that. Plus, they lost their left tackle right before halftime. It looked like to a shoulder injury. He did not come back. The only touchdown of the entire game, 90 seconds left in the first half, the running had gotten them inside the 10. Josh Downs scores, but no pass catcher does more than 26 yards. You know, we can dress it up. We can tell ourselves it was Rivers' first game back, and it wasn't that bad. He was mistake-free until the very, very end. Maybe he will get better for next week, home 49ers. He might, but how can we assume it? In a fantasy semifinal, not that you're so much thinking about using him. I mean, we're going to rank a couple of those receivers, you know, in the top 50, but we're not going to be aggressive with them, no doubt. And listen, because Indy's defense was so good and kept this game close, Rivers had a chance to be conservative. So maybe in a case where that doesn't happen, they'll be more aggressive and there'll be more production. Rivers had a chance to go win this one too, and he did. He completed a back shoulder throw to Alec Pierce to set up the 60-yard field goal, and they made the kick. But then Seattle went and basically did the same thing and kicked their 6th field goal. And with 11 seconds left, it was asking too much of Rivers or probably any quarterback. And he did throw an interception at the very end. You're obviously worried if you're a Colts fan, but I think you should probably be worried if you're a Seahawks fan, because as bad as the first half in Atlanta was last week, that's kind of how bad this entire game was. Sam Darnold kind of under siege, only sacked once, but pressured and ran around. And, they came out trying to establish it with Kenneth Walker, and they got stuffed. And JSN had a gnarly drop early second quarter. Darnold ran around and got popped and fumbled out of bounds. Their only halfway decent drive of the first half was the 2-minute drill at the end of the half, and they got stopped and kicked a field goal. They're down 13-6 at halftime with a grand total of 5 rushing yards. Late third quarter, they made a downfield play to the rural juror part 2, and JSN got loose on a third down, but they still could only kick a field goal. Down 1 with 5 minutes left, JSN has a long run after the catch, kind of saved his day. It was a struggly day, but it was still 7 for 113, which we'll take. But then in the red zone, Darnold throws one behind Shaheed. He throws one behind Cooper Kupp. They settle for a field goal again. Now, I'm not going to look at Sabcav, Zach Charbonnet, compared to Walker's output and really think anything. Charbonnet did have a couple of runs to get them going in the third quarter, but mostly the Colts defense just absolutely stepped up, threw a ton at the line of scrimmage. Makes me wonder who gets to be a no doubt fantasy starter on Seattle other than JSN. I'm not trashing Walker because of anything that Charbonnet did, but like this offense right now, where Darnold doesn't seem to be able to make anybody pay for playing up and stacking the line and making him beat them downfield. I don't know. Thursday night, the Seahawks better get ready to score more points because they're playing the Rams. Maybe Shaheed is a little more trustable. In the emergency drive at the end, Rashid Shaheed had back-to-back catches that got them in winning field goal range. So it's better, but it hasn't been very good until now, so starting him will require some faith. We've got the Ravens going to Cincinnati and shutting out the Bengals. Sweet vengeance for that mess on Thanksgiving night, but not something that immediately should restore all your confidence in players that you've gotten away from using. Lamar Jackson, I hear it all week. All the major NFL talking heads. Lamar is so beaten up. But I've been telling you for a month, when Lamar Jackson needs the extra gear to scramble, he has it. He's had it. Now, we all love Lamar Jackson around here. I'm not telling you he's bad. I'm not telling there's no question they're not calling his number on called runs. So if you want to tell me that's precautionary and therefore Lamar definitely has a physical ailment, I can maybe believe it. He is quite literally the greatest running quarterback the sport has ever known. But I just think it's sort of letting the rest of the Ravens off the hook to say this is all about Lamar Jackson injury. It should be beyond obvious that what ails this offense goes beyond whatever ails Lamar. And they didn't even have the ball very much on Sunday. Jackson had 12 pass attempts. Derrick Henry did have a 100-yard day, maybe the quietest of his career. He had 2 big runs back-to-back right at the start of the second half for 53 of those yards. Was never close to a touchdown. Mark Andrews scoffs at the notion of using him in a fantasy league. It's Henry, obviously, and I think it's Zay Flowers. It was an up and down day for You Don't Say Zay Flowers. He popped one up in the air in the second quarter to create an easy interception that was not Lamar's fault, but Flowers also made an insane downfield catch before halftime. Next play, Jackson immediately tries to throw a different interception, but the Bengal drops it. And then next play, another deep ball to Flowers. He catches it, a touchdown. The first touchdown for Baltimore was a screen to Rasheen Ali. And then early third quarter, another Flowers target in the end zone. Oh man, thrown a little too high, but he did get his hands on it. Couldn't bring it in. Is Lamar a must start? I just continue to say no. And I just, I think they have problems with not enough other receiving weapons other than Flowers, an offensive line that's okay, but not great. And then not a lot of organized runs that are called for Lamar, though he will scramble. The Patriots are Baltimore's opponent next week. A big game for both teams. Henry and Flowers, I think, are in lineups, and Lamar is probably on the borderline. And of course, the Ravens didn't really need to push the envelope on offense because Cincinnati never got it in the end zone, not once. They had the ball 40 minutes compared to 20 for the Ravens and never scored a single point. Good Lord, how does that happen? Joe Burrow, not blameless. He ruined the first drive. There was a free rusher, because there were a lot of those, because Cincinnati didn't block anybody. But, you're the Bengals quarterback. You're used to having some free rushers. What you can't do is run backwards and take a sack that gets you out of field goal range. Certainly the first interception was nothing to do with Burrow. Jamar Chase tapped it up in the air to be picked. Chase finally gets untracked with a big run after catch in the third quarter. But 4th and 4, Burrow takes an ill-advised deep seam shot to Mike Gesicki, who stinks, and it's a turnover on downs. On a 4th and 7 in the fourth quarter, Chase makes another big play, and we're able to exhale about him. He also almost scored with about 8 minutes left in the game, but could not quite bring it in. And then in the red zone, Mitchell Tinsley drops a touchdown. Very next play, Burrow has another free rusher, and he does what you cannot do. He flops it softly over the middle. It's intercepted. It's a pick six. And after that, I'm just going to say the starch was taken out of the Bengals. Down 24-0. They just ran. It was a little embarrassing. I kind of think the coach needs to go. By the end, they kind of looked like a team that did not want to be there. The good news is that Chase and Chase delivered, Jamar Chase and Chase Brown. The bad news was Burrow. And next week in Miami, it won't be cold, but, if you survived with Burrow, does it make you think twice? I don't know. I don't think Burrow's going to be outside my top 12 quarterbacks, despite this not being very good. And then finally, Sunday night, the story of a once productive wide receiver everybody was counting on, who has totally hit the skids. Oh, and also Justin Jefferson. The Vikings beat the Cowboys. Get the Cowboys off my national TV screen. What's that? I'm touching my fictional earpiece and being told they are playing the Commanders on Christmas Day. Don't make me watch. But yeah, sure, Justin Jefferson being borderline unusable? I mean, yes, but that's old news. I was, of course, referring also to George Pickens. The week after you talk some serious mess to Richard Sherman, you'd think maybe you'd get some effort out of Pickens. 3 catches, 33 yards. He was seen languidly running routes for a lot of the night. I'm sorry, Dak Prescott's head doesn't even turn Pickens' way right now most of the time. Pickens' first catch comes with 30 seconds left in the half. CeeDee Lamb got a couple of downfield balls and got up over 100 yards. I know, I was wrong for so long on Pickens before I was right, but at least I'm not crazy. And we are now left with the notion of what are we going to do with George Pickens? We've already lowered Justin Jefferson. Maybe we lowered him too far because Jefferson was really close to a good night on an offense that has shown well the past 2 weeks and gets the Giants next week. Jefferson scored a touchdown, but it was called back for an illegal formation. He got 2 more end zone targets as well. It's still 2 for 22, while Jalen Naylor catches 2 red zone touchdowns. Jordan Addison is basically limited to 1 meaningful play, a bomb in the second quarter, where had it been thrown a little further, he'd have been gone. J.J. McCarthy certainly better and had some wonderful throws in this game, but he's just very variable from play to play. He can wing a perfect seam route to TJ Hawkinson and then very next play have Jefferson wide open for a huge gain and airmail it over his head for no reason, no pressure. It puts us in an awkward position with Jefferson for sure. And I know where we've landed, which means, probably unless you're a huge underdog, you probably just have to sit him on your bench. It also leaves us in an awkward position with Pickens. And I got to be honest, less with Pickens because it's only been 2 weeks, 2 bad games. But those 2 bad games are not coming at a great time. And how do we look at it and not think he's a head case? I think you probably have to start him, but I don't know for sure. Javonte Williams scored a goal line touchdown after a couple of tries early in this game, then gave us a scare coming out, missing the rest of the first half with a shoulder injury and being called questionable to return, ceding territory to Malik Davis. But when the third quarter started, Javonte fortunately was back in, and he was basically the main thing that worked for Dallas. He got 15 carries, 9 of them in the second half. Probably could have been more, but we'll take 9 for 78 in that second stanza. When it's a close game and your running back has done 9 for 78, keep using your running back. But anyway, he's locked in as long as his injury is okay. Dak Prescott, no passing touchdown. Not maybe quite as disastrous as Joe Burrow, but yeah, not great for the fantasy quarterfinals. The Cowboys marched it up and down the field, missed a couple of field goals. I think usual suspects mostly on these teams. I mean, the Vikings don't have any usual suspects. They're kind of nobody we feel great about, though again, J.J. McCarthy had higher highs in this game, so it does lift the ceiling if you want to take a chance on some Vikings in a good matchup. While the Cowboys, they have the other thing going on. We're not going to get away from using too many of their guys, except we have some thinking to do about Pickens, and I think the Cowboys have some thinking to do about Pickens because when they needed him, when you needed him, he sure wasn't reliable.
Monday Night Preview.
The briefest of previews here, the Dolphins heading to the cold to play the Steelers. The last time out, we saw Pittsburgh be really aggressive right out of the gate and throw it way downfield, which immediately made us have to consider whether or not we're treating Decaf Metcalf the way that we would like to. And I kind of did. I got him up to wide receiver 22. It was not just an impressive performance last week, but impressive usage. Clearly, this will be a much colder game, and we'll see if the Steelers are so inclined again. But if you waited and took that chance, obviously you're using Metcalf and Jalen Warren and Devon Achan's ribs are okay. Jalen Waddle is probably in your lineup. I guess I'm not outraged by the idea if you waited for Darren Waller, but I have visions of the freezing games that I've seen Tua Tagovailoa play in Buffalo and Kansas City. I mean, we'll see. The Miami offense has shown real signs of life in the past month, and they just won a colder game against the Jets. Not this cold. It'll be interesting to watch, and we will talk about it on tomorrow's show. We are sponsored by Pick 6 from DraftKings. It's easy, it's fun. You just picked more or less on 2 or more player stats. The better your picks, the bigger your payout. And if you download the Pick 6 app and you sign up using the code Harris, make one $5 pick set, you'll get $50 in Pick 6 credits immediately. Let's say you wanted to play tonight's game I just talked about. I'm putting together a 3-legger here. Let's say Devon Achan over 27.5 receiving yards, Jalen Wright under 18.5 rush yards, and a Kenneth Gainwell anytime touchdown. You heard me. If I put $5 on that, it wins $38. If it hits, that's fun. Gives you a little extra rooting interest you might not otherwise have had. Please play in small amounts like that for fun. But get that Pick 6 app and play it. Sign up using the code Harris.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Today's guest.
Too prickly of a personality. Charlie Day, Ringo Starr. Mr. Also Important at Rotoworld. Welcome, Pat Daugherty.
And today's guest, he is better than Ringo Starr. As far as I'm concerned, it is Patrick Daugherty. Find him all over social media. Just look up Patrick Daugherty, RotoPat. Hello, sir. It's very early on a mid-December morning. I'm sure you're not exhausted at all.
Oh, yeah. As Ringo might say, it don't come easy. But people, this job, I know everyone's like, how do you guys do this job? How do you watch football all the time? How do you podcast all the time? How do you write all the time? And we're Iron Men. We're Men of Steel. Someone has to do it. We are doing it.
Cousin Josh refers to himself as the Eddie George of podcast guests.
That's a good one. Listen, he's not going to hit the home run, but 3.8 yards per carry he's going to do.
Pretty good stuff out of Josh. Yeah, of course it's a wonderful job. We don't mind, but this is the 16th straight. This is the 15th straight week that I've gone into the submarine. I am currently talking to you from the submarine, and I've only have one more week to do, and not that I'm counting. You picked these games, but I think that's, in two of their cases, it's because you had to cover them for your job and you wrote blurbs, I believe.
That's true, and I try to take one for the team a lot. I actually make our schedule, and listen, someone has to watch the Jets, and I have a connection to the game. Like I wouldn't even say I'm a Brady Cook fan. I actually got mad at him quite frequently at Mizzou, but I was like, you know what? If someone has to watch Brady Cook, I'll be the one to do it.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get to the Jets in a second, but we'll start with the Raiders and Eagles, and we won't talk very long about them.
No.
Because obviously it was not a very competitive game. The starters were out for the Eagles in the fourth quarter. So as for what the plan looked like, the Eagles hadn't been good on offense for a month, and they were here. I felt like an obvious concentration on Saquon, which is good, and it worked. Also an emphasis, and they mentioned it ad nauseum, frankly, on Jalen Hurts running, like calling actual run plays. Lamar Jackson would never. The last play of the third quarter looked like maybe he got his knee tweaked, but he was all right, and they didn't take him out because of that. They were blowing him out. Jalen Hurts is a lot more attractive for fantasy if he's getting called run plays for him. Does this make you trust him a little more, having watched this?
It does. Can I go off script for 1 second to say one thing about this game? What kind of game this was? So 31-0 over the Raiders. This was the kind of game where I spent a lot of it daydreaming. Like, listen, I know the Raiders would beat the best college team, but what would the spread be at least? And I spent a lot of time thinking about what would the spread be if the Raiders had to go to the Horseshoe, next week. And I think I said on Vegas, like minus 30.5. Does that sound too low to you? Maybe, because my God,
they stink.
It was like an exhibition. It really, at no point did the Eagles feel threatened. So I think the only thing we really learned about the Eagles is they can still hold serve, which is useful. Like, they're having their own collapse issues. Like, the Raiders are in a different style of collapse, with the Eagles, by their standards, have been in some sort of collapse. They're at least they can hold serve where they get the right opponent. They can stop whatever's been ailing them the past few weeks. And you feel better from that regard that, okay, whatever. In these kind of situations, they can still do what needs to be done. You take heart from that, because next week is another one of these situations, really. It's a little trickier because it's a division rival in the Commanders, who looked a little spunkier yesterday against the Giants. But the Commanders' defense is one of the 2 or 3 worst in the league over the past 6 weeks, I would say. So you like seeing the Eagles kind of get back to their roots in a game where they needed to do that. I think you trust that they can do that against the Commanders.
The thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to talk about Hurts because specifically people have been getting out of starting him. He hasn't been ranked as a top 5 quarterback lately. And you're right. It shows they can hold serve. I really feel like his viability is not geared. It's not going to be geared around the pass game. His viability is geared around other stuff. And so, is this enough to give you faith that some of that other stuff is back?
It's just enough is what I would say.
Okay.
To find enough. And because one thing working in his favor, everyone in that part of the quarterback board has pretty uncomfortable questions right now. Like, oh, wow, Joe Burrow shut out. That's interesting. And someone hurt every week for the Bengals. And Lamar Jackson having similar issues kind of to Jalen Hurts. Like, why is Lamar not running as much of late? They do not look nearly as crisp passing as they normally do. The Ravens, the other guys, like Trevor Lawrence is playing well, but as we'll get to in a minute, but he's got a tough matchup. Sam Darnold's collapsing. So it's kind of like Hurts is showing enough where I'm not going to drop him beyond other people that have maybe just as concerning, if not more concerning questions. So I guess that's maybe a negative way to look at it. I'm not necessarily looking at it like a positive, like Jalen Hurts has won me back over.
But it is a positive. Yeah, it's a positive in that they called run plays for him finally. You saw it at least. You don't have to it's not Sasquatch. It's not theoretical anymore. So that is kind of good. I actually kind of have the same. I'm trying to focus in these games on what advice can we give people that isn't no duh, and Dallas Goedert is one here. These red zone shovel pass touchdowns, very annoying if you have Barkley.
Yes.
If you didn't use him, you feel bad seeing it in the box score, but like there were more than just the shovel passes in the 2 weeks in a row he's produced. Are you willing to trust him a little more going forward?
He's another, or I just view it in the context of where he's at his position. And tight end has been very deep this year, but it's not been good depth. Like there's not a whole lot of difference some weeks between like the tight end 8 and even the tight end 24. Like
for sure.
They just all blend together. And recent performance, is always a good tiebreaker. He has 3 70-yard games all year, 2 of them in the past 2 weeks. I believe these touchdowns were his first since October. Where it's not like I'm starting Dallas Goedert with like a lot of enthusiasm, like, oh yeah, thank God Dallas Goedert is in my lineup. But like, well, I'm glad he's in my lineup instead of Mark Andrews, or I'm glad he's in my lineup instead of Hunter Henry, instead of Juwan Johnson. And 9 touchdowns. They haven't been exactly like efficiently allocated in terms of fantasy, but maybe too, I thought that was another sign of the Eagles maybe coming back to their roots, because like you said, it wasn't just the shovel pass touchdowns. Like maybe they're giving up, trying to like reestablish the deep passing game. You can't really say that after one game against the Raiders, because they just didn't even need to try that. But it was enough, to concoct a story for why you should continue starting Dallas Goedert, I'll say.
Continue. I mean, I had him 17 among tight ends this week, and yes, 8 and 17 are exactly the same, but you got to put him somewhere, and so I'm gonna increase them just because, like you said, it's nothing else. Just like I just saw it, maybe it'll happen again. I don't know. It's a disgusting position.
Chris, I was much smarter than you. I had him as tight end 14.
You were much smarter. I mean, isn't that just generally the rule? I had Kyle Pitts tight end 14. Did you have Pitts or Goddard higher for the week?
I had Pitts. I did have Pitts tight end 4, actually.
Woo! Good call.
Talking about scam, I was believing in.
That was a scam.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about the Raiders very much, other than to say, it's obviously Kenny Pickett was not the solution. You don't have a choice with Brock Bowers. I don't think you're starting Goddard over Bowers. I don't think you're starting Pitts over Bowers, right?
No, it is. You don't have a choice, and I guess the way to view that is the worst possible offensive environment. He still provided 8.8 PPR points, which is a decent week for a lot of these guys in this tight end 8 to 16 range. So, but Genty, this game,
Genty, like he's in Justin Jefferson territory and has been for a while, where he's fallen far down the board, and people are looking for a reason not to use him. And obviously, there's a reason not to use him. We give permission. Like, I don't know, it depends on your team, but we give permission.
I absolutely do at this point. I mean, he's essentially in like the Kenneth Gainwell zone. We're like, well, he's going to catch 3 to 5 passes. I have no idea what kind of carries he's going to get or where they might come. And this offense environment, like, this is the second time this year where I was convinced, like, there's no way so-and-so could be worse than the starter. Like, Max Brosmer's not going to be good, but there's no way he can be worse. Kenny Pickett's not going to be good, but there's no way he can be worse than Geno Smith. Good humbling reminder that, oh, well, yeah, they can always be worse.
All right, we just did 9 minutes on this awful game, so we're going to go faster through Jets-Jags. It's a Ross Tucker game, which is delightful. We love Ross. Not a competitive game. Also funny to me that the main tweak, the main strategic thing that Jacksonville did in this game is to kick touchbacks. So they couldn't get kickoff returns because that was the only thing they were scared of. And actually, Isaiah Williams had a punt return touchdown called back for a very dumb penalty. Again, trying to focus in on the things we can do something about into our fantasy semifinals. Jacoby Myers feels like the number 1 receiver to me. And Brian Thomas, scores early, kind of vanishes later. I think Myers, I'm to the point now where I'm like, boy, I think he's in every single lineup on every team he's on. And Thomas, gets a chance to be in there.
Jacoby Myers, the only word of caution there is he should be in every lineup because he's very dependable, very safe floor. He's going to be in the top 36, basically any rankings you look at, aka a wide receiver 3. He's just the ultimate player, or it doesn't always make sense, but like his floor and ceiling converge. Like if I had asked you yesterday, like if you hadn't seen this game, I'm like, Chris, what do you think Jacoby Myers' stat line was? You'd go, I don't know, 5 catches for 71 yards. I mean, absolutely, because that's what he does every week. And that's what he did in this game, Chris.
Thomas did have a different end zone target late in the second quarter. There's a boom potential there. I thank God we can get rid of the Mac Jones thing. It turns out they're not like constitutionally incapable of hitting Trevor Lawrence to Brian Thomas deep. You're probably I don't think you're thinking you're going to have Thomas ranked ahead of Myers, but he might be ranked close to him.
He'll be close. And excuse me, Thomas is just the kind of thing. Be honest about what you got. You drafted, what you hoped was an alpha wide receiver one. That did not happen. What you have now is not nearly as good, but you can work with it where he's honestly like a Christian Watson type wide receiver 3 right now, where not as many targets as you would like. He needs to catch a deep ball or two, but he'll get some touchdown opportunities. Kind of guy who can, affect a matchup on only 3 or 4 catches. So he's still a useful fantasy player. It's very frustrating that he's not a guy like winning your matchup for you, but he can still affect them. He can still be in your lineup. You just got to be honest about what you have. It's not a wide receiver 1, obviously.
And Trevor Lawrence, it probably goes without saying that we're not going to overreact to what was a very good performance against the Jets heading to Denver next week, despite how well he played here.
It's tough because it's not just one matchup. This was an exclamation point matchup, but it's now an entire month of Trevor Lawrence, not just looking different, but playing the best football of his career. Really in kind of like a Drake May fashion. I don't know if you've noticed this. Like, he's not completing 20 passes most weeks. He's not getting 300 yards most week, but high yards per attempt, like getting enough touchdowns to be useful in fantasy. I mean, yesterday was something entirely different, and kind of like a culmination of several years of like just frustrating, like he's got to find floor. Like surely there's going to be a ceiling in there somewhere, and things just finally coming together with Liam Cohen, but. Yeah, really frustrating not be able to chase points with the guy who played well not only yesterday but an entire month, because you can't treat him as a QB1 going to Denver, Colorado. It just wouldn't be prudent. I almost did the impression, but I decided not to lapse into the impression. But yeah, he cannot be treated as a top 12 option just because no one is producing top 12 numbers in that stadium.
Yeah, I did Lawrence 10 this week, and it felt pretty good about it, and can't do it next week either. All right, then we have the same Genty conversation as we have with Breece Hall. Brady Cook, Brady Cook makes it so that you're not going to have any receivers. That's obvious. Like A.D. Mitchell was a nice story if you got Tyrod Taylor. If there's no Tyrod Taylor, you're not using A.D. Mitchell. He scores a touchdown here, but you can't use him. How did Breece Hall play in this game? I mean, it's not a lot of yards. How'd you think he played?
Not very well, but it was all part of the same pie, where I actually thought Brady Cook, considering the non-existent expectations, played fine. Where my main thing as a guy who's seen a lot of Brady Cook football is like, this guy's not going to play fast enough. He's not going to process fast enough to even be like a number 3 quarterback in the NFL. I was a little surprised like how into the flow of the offense he was, where they weren't taking delay of game penalties, that kind of thing. This is, again, extremely low bar. The problem is the defense is so bad. It's 21-7 early in the second quarter. He's so inexperienced. He's not going to be the kind of guy like playing cat and mouse with the defense. And it's just way, way, way too many obvious passing situations. So, of course, you get the really bad mistakes from Brady Cook. And he's just going to constantly be in game script that he cannot surmount. And it's just the same deal for Breece Hall. They're going to be in pass-first game script. They're not a team built to do that right now. Like, Breece is not going to get any like inviting looks, inviting fronts. And he's just a guy who he's not adding the extra yards this year. He's not getting the explosive plays. Maybe it's environment related, obviously, at least partly so. But Breece, maybe he sneaks into the top 24 because a little bit like Quinshon Judkins, like even though the offense environment's so bad, he's getting at least 14 to 15 touches. But man, you are not feeling good about it with him in your lineup.
No, it's 2 disaster weeks in a row, and I think we didn't really appreciate how much the quarterback was going to affect even him. Like, Tyrod lifted all boats a little bit, and now those boats are sunk. It's not good. All right, Lions-Rams, the big story. The funny thing is, like, huge fun game to watch, like pretty close the whole way through, and like the Lions had a lead for a while there, and the Rams were a little bit on the ropes and then came out swinging and were real good, and like everybody paid off. So it's almost a game you don't need to have that much of a conversation about, except Devontae Adams. I thought watching it in real time, it was his Achilles, the way he stopped, the way he like protected his leg and didn't want to walk. But they're saying hamstring. I believe them. He's been on the injured list with a hamstring. Seems really unlikely he's going to be able to play in 3 days. So here's Davante Adams leading the NFL in receiving touchdowns on a wagon offense, not being there for your fantasy semifinals, which is really tough. And the tendency is going to be, can we potentially look for someone else on the same team? And like Tutu Atwell had that one nice catch, plucking it off the turf on the sideline, but I just feel like we've been down that road with him so long, and nobody really, they didn't have time to emphasize anybody else. There's Kanata Mumpfield had a downfield pass, but I don't know. Would you ever consider any other Ram receiver for this Week 16?
No, first off, talk about a life is beautiful fantasy football game. Like, what was it, 75 points, I believe. Like, the actual good players are scoring most of them. But no, because Tutu Atwell used to be one of the ultimate, like the rare fantasy football wide receiver streamer. Like if someone's hurt, like, hey, listen, they're going to get Tutu 8 looks. He's going to catch 4 of them for 74 yards. He might score a 37-yard touchdown. But it's almost like they've gotten too deep. And like, I'm not even say it's good depth necessarily. And it's like too weird. It's like Puka and then it'll be a rotation. And I just have no clue who's going to be the winner of that rotation. So if you lose Devontae, I was going to say, if you're going to lose a good player, at least have it be Devontae, because it's all about the touchdowns. Or if you're replacing Devontae, just view it as trying to be like, who is the best odds of replacing this weekly Devontae Adams touchdown in my lineup? And it's not going to be one of these Rams, is what you can say. So I'd at least guess I'd rather lose the touchdown or bust guy than a guy who's carrying my team with yards and catches and all that. But yeah, still not a great situation for the fantasy semis.
No, it's not great. The usual suspects of both these teams are in lineups. Judging by our Sunday live stream, we have a lot of listeners who would like to be using Blake Corum, and I understand why. Again, you get to be I was going to say 60-40, but sometimes it looks like 50-50. He played 32 snaps to Kyren Williams' 37 snaps, and Corum scored another touchdown. They're very difficult to tell apart when you're watching them. I forget which one is 23 and 22. Like, wait, who's 22? That's Corum. Okay, yeah. And when they're going the other way, you can only see the first numeral. You have no idea which one they are because they look so similar. I guess I'll just say, you don't even have to base it on how it looked here because it's looked the same for a month, if not more. Corum is very, very involved. Kyren Williams is going to be ranked higher. Are they starting to get closer together in your estimation when you do a weekly rank for Week 16? And like, how does Kyren Williams start to suffer in his rank? Does Blake Corum just like start jumping up?
Kyren, I think he's continued to remain in like that RB 12 to 15 range where it's kneecapped his ceiling, or we're not getting anything resembling a spike week. But I think the floor has remained solid enough for Kyren that you don't ever consider benching Kyren. And
Agreed.
Corum is where the Devontae effect really comes in, I think, because we joke constantly on our show. I mean, Davante Adams is essentially the goal line running back of the Rams offense. And that's where I think the effect will be most felt is that, the running backs now actually have to be goal line backs. And Kyren, I'm sure, I guess, will probably still get the first crack at that. But I think you see enhanced touchdown opportunity for Blake Corum, who's certainly got enhanced touch opportunity the past 6 or 7 weeks. And the Devontae injury honestly does make me more comfortable about starting Blake Corum because I think a backfield that's already getting a lot of touches, like I think his highest value touches might filter down to that backfield instead of the wide receivers like Tutu Atwell, Mumpfield, or even the tight ends. I don't even know what's going on with the Rams tight ends other than Colby Parkinson right now. Ferguson, did he score a touchdown? Almost score a touchdown?
Almost scored. Yeah, he got an end zone target. Yeah, Parkinson I was going to ask you about too because he's he just keeps, all he does is keep scoring touchdowns. And actually in this game, he had a completion, believe it or not, that wasn't from the 5-yard line, kind of a deeper ball too. I've resisted on Parkinson. I don't think he's anything more than a catch and fall down tight end really, but he keeps catching touchdowns and maybe he's I guess I just go, sure, if you can't get Dallas Goedert and you don't want to use Hunter Henry this week because why, they're all the same, but like Parkinson's hot. So sure.
The other Devontae effect I could say is I wonder if the Parkinson touchdowns were another Devontae effect where teams are finally, all right, listen, got a double or triple team Devontae at the goal line. And so like Matthew Stafford's like, fine, I'll throw to Colby Parkinson. I don't even know who this guy is, but I will keep throwing to him since you've triple covered Devontae Adams. And now with no Devontae, like the defense might be like, all right, maybe we should actually account for Colby Parkinson at the goal line. This is probably getting into a little too much of a galaxy brain take, but my theory on the Parkinson touchdowns was he was probably benefiting from the insane amount of attention Devontae Adams was commanding, and that tight end 1 is still way too strong for Colby Parkinson. He's the classic tight end 2 touchdown desperado, basically.
I mean, people who are only judging this stuff by box scores would scream at us for saying that. How could he not? Given that it's freaking Travis Kelce, Hunter Henry, and Dalton Kincaid, how are you not telling me to just use Colby Parkinson? I mean, that's why we have a job, because we think it doesn't make sense that this guy who was an afterthought in Seattle suddenly is a superstar. But I also don't feel strongly enough about Tyler Warren with Phillip Rivers, or Jake Ferguson, or, like it's just at some point you go, cool, man, just start Parkinson. Stop talking to me about it.
I know. There's seriously, you hit at the point there. There's no difference between Hunter Henry at tight end 14 and then like AJ Barner at tight end 22. Like, listen, we're pretending there's a difference. There's not, all right? I've got no clue, all right? Stop asking.
You started low on that list for me. There's not a lot of difference between Theo Johnson or Travis Kelce with no Patrick Mahomes, or like I'm out of guys. Are there 4 guys who I feel much better starting than Colby Parkinson? Maybe.
Yeah, is there even that big of a difference between Harold Fannin and these guys? The answer is
they're all the same. Kyle Pitts just had a big game. Trust me, that's coming back. I don't have a lot of Lions topics for you. The topic is start your Lions. Is there anything else you'd like to say about them?
No, I mean, a narrow offense that somehow got narrower. And David Montgomery got the touchdown, right, if I remember correctly, but he was like always kind of the one fantasy nuisance, and he's not really a fantasy nuisance anymore. So not only start your Lions, but you can start them with the utmost confidence for the most important games of the year.
I mean, Gibbs probably sunk some teams yesterday, but it's not really his doing. They just kind of...
No, some of those teams were managed by myself. That's all right.
Apologize for that. All right. Well, pal, you've been coming on this show for 11 straight seasons. Did you know that?
I would have guessed 9 or 10. I don't know if I would have guessed 11. Wow. That
11 straight seasons. 2015 was the first podcast season. And you are certainly you're in the top 5. You're in the top 4. You're on the Mount Rushmore of guests who've been on the most, and I could not appreciate it more. I know the Yacht Possums also appreciate it very much. You're great. You're the best. I'll leave you alone for a while, but we'll ping you sometime in the off season and have you on. You can find Pat's work at Rotoworld. You can listen to him all over the place. You can read his column that's coming up. You're going to write it as soon as we're done here, I believe.
I am. Yes. Listen, I've already got it written. It's definitely written.
You should definitely drop some. I was on the Harris show today, and that idiot said, and you should say something like that. All right, I really appreciate you doing it all these years. You're the best. Thank you so much.
You are. Your audience even better. Thank you so much, guys.
And thank you so much for listening. Let me also thank the sponsors that made today's show possible. If you can see your way through to supporting a sponsor, maybe a last-minute gift, it really does help the show. We had Manscaped and Aura Frames, 2 great gift ideas that you can still make happen if you act now. And also Pick 6 from DraftKings. Have a look at that. You can find details about today's sponsors in today's show notes. All the current sponsors are listed at harrisfootball.com. I can't express enough gratitude for how well you do support the sponsors. That's how this whole, if there's a show, if it still exists, you've done a great job supporting the sponsors. If you don't have a need right now, you don't have the means right now, so happy to have you listening. That's going to do it for this Monday episode. I got to go watch how many more games? 6 more games? Something like that. And I will talk about them on Tuesday's show. And then we'll also do a waiver segment because there are going to be some interesting waiver type situations. Dave Kluge from Football Guys will join for the waiver segment on Tuesday as well. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you tomorrow.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.